Hello, everyone. Welcome to the course on dying alone in a city and to our first lecture. This course will explore the sociology of death, dying, of loneliness and health in terms of urbanization, social fragmentation, loneliness, as I said, death, and we'll focus on the more. Yeah, okay, it's back. All right, so let's start again. Yes, so let's start with the first part on um, the death. And I think everyone thinks it's more biological, like what people tend to think, like it's the person used to breathe, their heart was beating, brain was working, and none of that is like it stopped, and meaning the person is dead. But we'll look at it from the sociological perspective and understand it's not just biological. All right. So let's dive into a little bit of history. So on this first photo, you can see it's the death of George Washington. And it was in 1977 this painting was made. So count the people in the room. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 people, 9 if we count George Washington. So you can see that he's dying and he's surrounded by family, doctors, servants, all present. This was not unusual, it was normal. For most of human history, deaths happened at home, in public, surrounded by community. Everyone, including children even, was part of it. And the sociological question is, why did that change? And what did we lose when it did? Um, so, um, yes. I should make another disclaimer that we'll look mostly on the Western societies and on the big cities. So if I say something which doesn't match your um, experience, it's fine. It also depends where you're from, your cultural background, and everything else. But we look mostly like, and we generalize most of stuff now. So um, in 1900s, that number was reversed. Like we saw, like 8 people on that picture. Now, over 80% of people died at home. In 1 century, we moved deaths entirely out of the home and into institutions like care houses, hospitals. And it's not just the change in location; it's also change into who is present, who is in control, and whether the dying person is surrounded by people who love them or by strangers doing their job. A French historian named Philippe Aris spent his career studying exactly this shift. Um, yeah, and this source is taken from Who and the article written by Kelly here. So, this French historian, and he was mostly medievalist, Philippe Aris, he studied Western cultures and death in Western cultures. So this, in this way, yeah, it's not applied to the whole culture, to the all of them. That's also a small disclaimer to make. And he came up with 2 types of deaths: tame death and invisible death. Tame death, he named it like this. It's not because it was just easy, but it was familiar. It was integrated into life. It was just, I don't know, as someone was born or like some marriage. It was it was simple. He calls the modern mode, the modern um, death invisible, not because death disappears, but because we have decided to put it in behind the hospital doors and hand it to the professionals. The key question he leaves with us is who benefits from this invisibility and who pays the price. So once again, um, tame death It describes the like typical medieval deathbed scene, which you can see on the on a picture right here. It's like a person lying and in the center of room with the family, neighbors. The door was open, was opened. Everyone who wandered from the street could enter and say goodbye, basically. And this was a public threshold that the whole community crossed together. The dying person was expected to, like, I don't know, say the farewells, to say goodbye to their kids, make peace with God, and with everyone who was surrounding him or her. And children, again, like, were present, because even back then, like, the childhood was taken a bit in a different way. The children would not be treated as kids nowadays. And death was just like kind of integrated in the texture of daily life as like birth or harvest or marriage. And invisible death, again, modern and urban, is hospitalized, medicalized, and it's more private. It started by the 20th century, as Aries argues, and it became more hidden, managed, and disposed of as effectively as possible. The dying person was moved to hospitals, as I said before, medical reasons, but because of the presence at home was more like socially unbearable for people, so they kind of put it like to outsource like to other institutions. And he also and Aris also, he didn't just identify two like modes of death, but he also traced five historical stages in Western communities, attitudes to death. So it's like tame on one's own, remote and near, others and invisible. And each stage reflects a shift in how societies relates to death, the body and the community of the dying. So what about tame death? It was mostly started in the fifth like to the 15th century. Death is familiar, it's expected and communal. The dying person knows that they're dying, and it's like often comes from like as an inner sense, dream, or a feeling, and the person like organizes their own departure. They lay down, gather the community, say goodbye. It's like social ritual, no fear, no denial, just acceptance of the universal ending, like human passage. Next, one's own death, starting from the 15th and lasts up until 18th century. It starts with the Renaissance when the individualism it's like starts, and it's like death becomes more dramatic and personal. Um, it's like my soul, my judgment, my death. This like you can see like even in art there will be like lots of skulls, hourglasses, like time. The dance of death like reflects a new anxiety about individual mortality and what comes after you die. Death is still public, but it's not now charged with personal kind of meaning because individualism started like to develop. Now, remote and near starts in the 18th century, and that becomes like simultaneously more feared and more romanticized. Um, it slightly started being pushed from the out everyday life. Um, and but also becomes yes, so the cemetery moves to the edge of the town before even cemeteries were placed kind of in different way in the cities. uh, but it also becomes a source of like aesthetic fascination. Cemeteries like Gothic literature, romantic movements, the idea of the beautiful death of a young person, all belongs to this movement. Then pre-last one is Others' Death, starts in the 19th century, sorry. It's like Victorial mourning, culture starts blooming, and death becomes as an occasion for elaborative public grief. Like black clothing started appearing, like worn for years. Mourning jewelry was made even. For the dead people, and deathbed was like a sacred space, and there's like a shift. If you notice, there's like no longer the emphasis no longer on the dying person's own spiritual preparation. It's also it's mostly on the grief of those who left behind, and that has been externalized a little bit. And we come to the invisible death, which starts in the 20th century. Death is removed entirely from the social life. It happens in hospitals behind closed doors, managed by the professionals who just do their job. The body disappears quickly. The mourning even takes less time. It's compressed because people have to work. If you look like at some traditions, like usually before the like mourning would take like 40 days, they would be like split up, that the whole year will be like according to some rules in like Slavic traditions, for instance. And now people have to kind of adapt quickly from someone's death. That has become, as Aris put it, like like failure, a medical, social, and personal. Um, and we do not, and he, as he put it, I would read that, we do not know how to die, we do not know how to grieve. So we knew that before we'd kind of like evolved, and now we don't know how to do this all. Another important sociologist whose theory will like whose ideas will take in count is Émile Durkheim. He was a French sociologist who wrote a book on suicide. He is based only on France. It's one of the first biggest like empirical works in sociology, and he studied like suicide in 1890s, and he showed, he came like as he was studying it, he saw the pattern that like people who are socially isolated significantly more likely to die by their own hand. He called this like anomic suicide. We'll come back to it like in a second. It's like death resulting from the like collapse of the social bonds, basically. Human beings are not designed for isolation. That's what he came up with as he was studying suicide in France. When connections break down, people die. This is not a metaphor. It can be measured. So he came up with the four types of suicide: egoistic suicide, altruistic, anomic suicide, and fatalistic suicide. So, a second. Yes, so he came up with these four types of suicide. Egoistic, what's that about? So it's like too little like social integration in society. The individual is cut off from the community. What can be an example? For instance, it's like the great example would be, I think, like old people, like elderly people who lose their spouse, who like after decades of marriage, like they lose someone close, and have no other like other close social bonds. And yes, the studies, I think you heard that like the mortality, yes, among recently widowed people, especially men, they have no social network outside their marriage, and because of that like lack of integration to society, they get more depressed in a clinical sense, and they're socially not integrated much. That's why they tend to get more depressed, basically. Altruistic suicide, it's like actually quite opposite. It's too much integration to society. Then into like some culture, into some social group community. The individual sacrifices their own life for the group. The great example would be Japanese kamikazes during World War II, who would just kill themselves. Like they will throw themselves on the grenades to save their unit. And it's like because their integration to a group is so strong, and so the total group survival will be like on the like for them like even would be like on the first place rather than their own life. Yes, he also like Durkheim put it out like that. Yeah, he studied that more and witnessed that more among the military societies, and yes, yes, it's like they have more will to die for the collective. Then anomic suicide. That's it's breakdown of social norms. The individual loses their sense of place and meaning. The great example might be the crisis in 2008, when the financial crisis in 2008. Yes, when there will be like there was the highest rates of suicide in Europe and the United States, because before, like, the social rules and expectations, which will give like life some structure and some predictability, they just like collapsed, and people lost their sense of meaning and place, and that yes, and we'll come to the fatalistic suicide, which is not enough integration. So it occurs when individual is subjected to oppressive, excessively strict rules and regulations. Durkheim's like when he was studying that, he said that it's can't be really observed in the modern societies nowadays. It's more in the like kind of it will be like more yes, it's like yeah, it will be like you can notice more in the like back in history. For instance, there was like Hindu practice of sati, suti. I mean, not pronounce it correctly now, but basically there it's fatalistic. It was like fate. It comes from like the word fate, like it's your destiny to die. For instance, in that sati practice, women uh, after their husband's death, they have to burn themselves on the grave of their husband to show the dedication and to like follow their husband in the afterlife. Basically, yes, but now it's forbidden. It's like illegal now, and it's like banned. It's like officially it's abolished, and you can't do that. But like, yeah, that's like in your faith. It's in your culture. It's like, yeah, you have to do it. That's a fatalistic suicide type. Yes, and so yes, basically Durkheim showed us that's like not like suicide is not just like some sort of psychological state when someone is just depressed and they kill themselves, but it's also depends on how much the person is like integrated into society. If it's like how dense the cohesion in the society. It's not just like purely medical and psychological. It also depends on the social bonds entire drastically. Um, and let me check. If you have questions, you can put them in chat and I can reply them later. I can't really see much because I'm the only one moderating everything. Yeah, we can return to the discussion later. I need to reshare my screen. Yes. Okay. So, sorry, I need to like check some of the stuff from. Okay, the recording is still in progress. Okay, great. Now let's move to the second part. The loneliness of death, of dying. So, and here we'll look at Norbert Elias. So, what about Norbert Elias, who is the greatest sociologist out there? He was a German sociologist. He was born in Germany, and he was Jewish. He was Jewish, and he had to like I think flee like to United States, I think, at some point, and then he returned after Nazis were defeated, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so he wrote the short book, The Loneliness of the Dying, and there, like, and there it reads like someone who has like thought very seriously about mortality, because of his like background, I think. His argument is very simple. That's like in modern societies, we find the dying very uncomfortable. That's why we put them like in the hospitals, somewhere out there, not like home, just we don't want to see that. And it's like, and why it makes us uncomfortable, because it reminds us of our own mortality. Um, it's not like cruel, maybe like, I don't know, if we're like looking at the sociological stance right here. Maybe like if psych philosophers will look at it, they may call it cruel or anything else, but it's consciously, it's like systematical, basically. We tell ourselves that like we're giving them professional care, like people who like dying at the care houses and everything else, professional care, quiet rest. But what we're actually doing is leaving people to face the most like profound experience of their lives without people who love them alone. So that's the quote. Like modern societies pushes the dying to the margins because death makes the living uncomfortable. Yes. And he came up with like basically like close to what no, Philippe Aries came up with was the tame death and modern death. Well, long, yeah, with the other like concept. Basically, what they're saying, like modern death and pre-modern and modern death. So in pre-modern death, the dying was central. Community organized itself around the departure that was witnessed, shared, and mourned collectively. But nowadays, unfortunately, the dying person is moved to an institution, and death is managed by the strangers or like people who are like professionally can take care of it. The living return to normal life as quickly as possible. Yes, and modern life is organized like, why is that? Because modern life is organized around productivity, like it's everything's going way too quickly, mobility and the future, and the dying person represents none of those things what I've just listed, and so they're gently, efficiently, invisibly like sidelined. That's the reason. And here's like I mentioned before, the most like crucial key term for today is like social death. It's the process by which a person becomes socially invisible and ceases to be treated as full human being before they die biologically. What it means, social death, it doesn't require biological death. It's happening right now to people in care homes. I mentioned this many times, hospitals, apartments where nobody visits. You can see it when staff stop using the resident's name, when visits drop from weekly to monthly to never, when a person's preference stop being like consulted and their stories stop being listened to. Um, with this term came up Clive Seal in 90s, 1995 maybe, and it's not like dying, and he came up with this thing that like dying alone is not primarily personal tragedy, it's sociological outcome, the result of how our society is organized. It's not natural, it's like we organized ourselves basically. Second. Oh yes, and here, like, look at this picture. I think it's like this image of like just some old person is like sitting or looking out of the window. It has become like visual shorthand for loneliness in our culture. From a sociological perspective, it's not just sad; it's visible. It's a visible outcome of structural decisions about how we build care systems, how we design cities, how we organize family life around work and mobility. that person in the window is not just alone because nobody cares. We're alone because we built a society in which caring has been made very difficult. We'll look into that in other lectures, maybe in next one. But just like a short overview and introduction to the like theory, basically. Um, and Seal came up with this like science of social death. I think I listed them pretty much already. It's like name are no longer used by caregivers or family. Visits become less frequent, or they just then stop. Preferences and opinions no longer consulted. It can be like, yeah, the most vulnerable group in this position are like elderly and people who are mentally disabled or like physically disabled. And treated and the person in the sense like treated as a body to be managed, not a person to be known. Um, yes. And social death is not just like private experience, it's a sociological one. Yes, and yeah, also like poor people in falls in this category. People without family nearby, or like they have a family, but they like I don't know, disseminated around like around the globe. Um, People like the kids move to another country, cities, wherever. Yes, and that's the final, I think, like quote by Seal. Dying alone is not primarily a failure of individual relationships; it's a sociological outcome. I will support this observation with a different sociologists. Yes, Kelleher, and we're moving to the part three, the sociological history of dying. So yes, Kelleher, who studied like also death in modern societies, he is quite close to the Philip Aris. But Philip Aris, for instance, he looked at death only in Western societies, and Kelleher, in the sense, he looked at the he looked he took like more cultures into account. It's yes. So he studied how human societies like across time and culture organize dying on a larger scope, basically. That's what I said. His conclusion is clear. That's like with very few exceptions, dying has always been communal. Ritual, prayer, public mourning, shared grief, and the medicalized, privatized, like isolated deaths that we experience now, have like we take for granted as is historically the exception. It's very recent, very Western, very urban invention, which raises a question: if communal dying is the historical norm, why did we dismantle it, and why and can we like rebuild it, basically? He studied like yeah, basically death on the larger scope, and he came up with this form like stages in prehistory, the shamanic, religious, civic, and mythicalized death. So yes, and yeah, as he said before, it's more the death should be accompanied by some ritual after, so which will help people to grieve and mourn healthier, better. So shamanic, the eldest one probably, yes, the ritual journey, spiritual guidelines, community ceremony. The examples might be like come from the indigenous cultures like across Siberia, Central Asia, and the Americas. And for instance, like Burats, I think they have some sort of like Burats in Siberia and Mongolia. Dying person, that like the soul of the person is like guided by shaman through the spirit world. The community sings the song, and the transition is witnessed collectively, basically. Same with the close to that might be like some communities in Bolivia, Peru. Yeah, the Americas, I already mentioned that. In Canada. What about the religious ones? It's like last rites, prayer, deathbed surrounded by community. So it's more medieval and early modern Catholic. Europe can be an example. So the priest arrives, and the family gathers. The prayers are said, farewells, and the dying person is uh, kind of like shepherd to the death with some guidelines, religious like framework, like yeah. But this model still persists today in many parts of the world. Yes, for instance, like in Catholic tradition, yes, in Poland, in Ireland. It's like the body is laid out at home, the community coming to pay like the regards, yes, and pay respects. Yes, in the Islamic tradition across the Middle East, North Africa, Central Asia again, yes, the dying person should um yes, I forgot how it's called, but like they should ideally hear declaration of faith as their last words, surrounded by the family. In Orthodox Jewish tradition, the dying person should not be left alone. For instance, a community member sits with them through the night. Um, and yes, that's the religious death, and then accompanied death, I would say. What about the civic? It's public mourning, processions, shared grief. Um, you can see that in ancient Rome. Ancient Rome and Athens, like ancient Greeks. Yeah, public funeral orations, like processions through the city, the community, gathering to mourn collectively, basically. Um, yes, the coffin should be like not coffin, like then it kind of like you can see that in Britain, in France in 19th century, that the coffin is displaced, like carried through the streets, like yes, like people should remove the hats and everything else. Yes, and um, which and we yeah, and then Kelly here came up with the fourth one, medicalized. It's private, institutional, managed by professionals. It's like, yeah, you can see it not everywhere, but like mostly in the United States, in the UK, Canada, Australia, mostly like Western Europe. And over 80% of deaths in hospitals take place in the care institutions, as I mentioned many times already. Yes, and the body is collected by funeral home, and it's like basically all this like stuff which is done, which used to be done by the community, the whole community. Now it's kind of like you give that to the funeral home, and they like, I don't know, they do the embalming, the cosmetic, like I don't know, um they like apply cosmetics to the dead body, like if it's woman, I don't know. And it's like usually they deliver the coffin to the church or somewhere. It's the ceremony closed, so like to minimize like kind of contact with death. Yes, and the grief is expected to resolve within the weeks. It's quite short, and it's more efficient, it's privatized and invisible. Yes. Uh, and we'll like return to that with like a Japanese kokodushi in the third. No, it's like in the next lecture on Saturday. And now let's address a little bit of some parts from the Anna Sokolova's like book. I'll say in Russian "Новому человеку новая смерть." It's more like anthropological work. She examined death like during Soviet Union. Um, And she came up, basically the core thought of the book is just like the rich, like she mostly learned about the rituals and how the Soviet government wanted to like remove all the religious aspects from the people's lives. And yes, and she examined like what happens when a state deliberately wants like to remove the traditional funeral culture and tries to replace it with something new. The early Soviet state abolished like Orthodox religious rituals, the prayers, the icons, the priests, and like they displaced it with some not communal, collective ceremonies, like red funerals, like civic processions. The body displayed publicly. The community gathered around socialist ideology rather than like religion. And unfortunately, there's not much data, as she put it out in the book. It's mostly there are like more data in Ukraine, in Russia and Kazakhstan. And yes, what Sokolova shows us is like even the revolutionary attempt, um, like confirmed by Kelleher's argument, no society can simply abolish death ritual. We need ritual after someone's death to process the this like this like part of like life for the people who witness that basically. Yes, and it always needs to be replaced with something because death rituals are not decorate, it's not just decoration. They're like structurally necessary. The yes When the Soviet Union collapsed and those like secular rituals fell away too, like this communal gatherings like at the like city councils and everything else, like um, yes, the post-Soviet societies were left with a vacuum around death. Neither the old religious like rituals nor the new Soviet ones, and people like had to learn how to grieve, how to live like through the ritual again, basically. Yes, and yes, and now let's combine Kelleher's and Aries. As I mentioned before, it will be brief. Like Aries, yeah, he traces the death attitudes in Western Europe from communal to invisible, and Kelleher does the same, but on a wider scope. The communal death is universal, isolated death is the exception. And if we combine both of them, we'll come up that dying alone is not just a natural endpoint of human development, it's also a specific historical and cultural choice. Yes, and together they make a powerful argument, and it's like there's like nothing natural or inevitable about the dying alone. It's a choice made not by individuals but by societies, and what societies choose they can also unchoose, which will bring us to the final conclusion, and we'll like look at the all the like thinkers I've mentioned. So let's pull like the threads together basically. So Aris shows us how death became invisible in modern Western societies. Robert Elias shows us what the invisibility does to the dying person. It isolates them, and at the moment the most need community. Durkheim, on the other hand, shows us but the isolation is not just sad, it's fatal. And Kelleher shows us that across human history and cultures, communal dying was the norm. And Seal shows us that the social death, dying invisible and alone, is a sociological outcome produced by structural forces, not individual failures. This is the theoretical foundation for everything that falls in this course, and which I'll come up to those. To these concepts once again, and by the end of this lecture, I will send out like a spreadsheet, not a spreadsheet, like a document with like key terminology if you need that, and also with the bibliography which I used, and maybe with some videos that may help to understand what I've said more. Um, so Yeah, okay. So we now have the beginning of an answer. Like for an answer, like why do modern societies make people die alone, and what does this tell us about how we live together? So this is structural, not like yeah the Yes, sorry. Aries showed us how death became invisible. Elias showed us what invisibility does to dying people. Durkheim showed that the relation kills. Kelly here showed us that the communal dying is the historical norm again, and Sokolova showed us that even revolutionary societies cannot do that without death ritual. Next lecture will go inside the city itself. Leave this yeah, like next lecture will like look at from the point of view of urbanization. Yes, so the question um, bridges us to the next two lectures. This one, another question: if dying alone is structurally produced, who is the most at risk, and what does the evidence show? So basically, we'll in lecture two, we will look at the city. As I said, the machine that produces loneliness will take in account Manuel Castells, Bauman, Simmel, Putnam, sociologists' view on that. And in lecture three, we'll look at the statistical evidence, like who actually dies alone, in what numbers. I mentioned that a little bit, like, but we'll look at it more, in what context they die, and what data tells us about the structural risk. Uh, but what comes next for now, hold the theoretical framework in your head that we've built today. I think that's it for today. Yes, with the theoretical part. Any questions, comments, or concerns? I have no idea what's going on in the chat, honestly, if it's anything going on. Yes, if you have questions or you need me to to clarify something, please type the question in the group chat, or you can unmute yourself, I think. Yes. Hopefully, yeah. One
Hello,
sec.
I'm
Hello,
sorry.
yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, yes, of course, of course. A second, I need to open I just can see the chat. I want to see everyone a second. I need to figure out how to use Zoom better, I think. Second, yes, you can answer, you can ask the question, yes.
Yes, I wanted to ask the question that when you were talking about the dying in 18th century and nowadays, that at first there were a lot of people around the dying man, and now it is just in um, a special place, with the
Yes.
doctors and so on. And I wanted to ask, is the same we can see when we are not dying, but when we are given a life, when we are, you know, um, bringing a new person to life,
Ah, okay. Oh,
Is
you
it
mean
the
like
same?
yes. Uh-huh, sorry.
Is it the same? So the same mechanism or no?
Oh, you mean like just the birth is also kind of like
Yep.
privatized, medicalized? Well, yes, in a sense. And it's like Well, but it's not alone really, because I think like in some societies they let in like your husband, sometimes it can be your mom or both. Depends on the hospital, country, culture. Uh, it's not the same, but like I might say yes, it's also like privatized like before, yeah, the whole like village or whatever, like in the in 16th centuries, like when the queen is giving the birth, everyone can see from the court, from the royal court, like to witness whether the baby wasn't substitute or not. Yes, I can understand what you're trying to say. Like draw like kind of death and birth, like that they kind of like the same. They're becoming like privatized. Yes, I don't know much about it. I haven't really read much, mostly about death. But I can say that maybe it's going the same way because, like, death also they can let in some people, but like mostly birth, it's not that isolated. I think maybe like yeah, it's my opinion. Maybe have different. It's totally fine. I'm not sure how to answer this question really because it's my opinion, mostly like empirical, not like that I read something about it.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Um, anyone else? There's in the group chat. Primitive community. My point of view, in the past, everyone survived as a part of the community. Later, the goal was to have a larger family so that someone could bring you a glass of water in our old age. Nowadays, everyone has learned to live alone and without a family, and the focus has shifted to self-care, comfort, and career. Yes. Individualism, yes, which started booming, blooming starting from the Renaissance era, 18th century. Yes, but like in the sense, like everyone has learned to live alone. Uh, we shall, yeah, we shall see like how like the outcome of it in the third lecture, maybe. Um, on like the looking like from the perspective of health. Um, and but like without the family, yeah, it's like oh yeah, I mean like I don't see it as a positive really, but like um yeah, thank you for your opinion. Um where should be euthanasia be attributed? Ah, you mean like in the sense of like suicide, Alisher? Like by Durkheim, like which suicide type is it? Um, in this sense, well, depends on the well, no, the reason is like the same. Usually, so if I'm not, well, it's not well, I would say it's egoistic, maybe, but it also, I think it depends on who is getting euthanized. There can be like people with mental illnesses, like maybe someone read the news that there was like some girl who was raped and couldn't like live with that, and like even psychologists like confirmed she's like in pain, and they let her get euthanized. Or like people who are like old, or people who are disabled. Yeah, mentally, physically disabled, because they tend to get euthanized, I think mostly, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. Obviously, it's not altruistic, not fatalistic. I would say, well, it can be like both like egoistic and kind of anomic. I would say it more anomic suicide. Yeah, because for instance, like even the thing I mentioned, sati, sati, this like Hindu practice. Some people say it's fatalistic. Some people say it's altruistic. Well, yeah, it's yes, that's the thing. It's like you can classify some of the stuff to the both of the classifications. Um, Here is the issue of euthanasia can be assessed individually from each situation. Also like abortion. I didn't understand the question a second. Here, the issue of euthanasia can be assessed individually from each situation, also like abortion. Uh, Here, the issue of euthanasia can be. I don't understand the question. I think may you maybe retype it or If you want, you can type it in Russian. Anyone else has the questions? You can answer in Russian, text in Russian, or unmute yourself and ask that. Yes. And yes, so we're done with this lecture one. What is social death theory and the sociology of dying. Next lecture. Oh, I did put like lecture two, lecture two. Amazing. The lonely city, urbanization, and the collapse of the community. So we'll look at the city, the machine of loneliness production. And yes, then we'll look at the data, statistics, and then why this matters, that policy, and how we talk about it. Yes, it'll be so. Next lecture will be on Saturday at 3 p.m. Central Asian time. So anyone else? Um, there issue. Эвтаназия может рассматриваться индивидуально в зависимости от обстоятельств, цели персоны и прочее. Yes, that's what I think I said already. I think, yes, it's like individually, or every case you should look at individually, I think. But like, what about abortion? Oh, okay. But we can continue the discussion later in the chat, even if someone is interested. We have 2 more minutes. Yes, next time I need to figure out Zoom to use different like tools there. Okay. Any other questions? We have 2 more minutes.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So yes. Okay, I'll send the bibliography. I'll send the outline sort of thing, like with key terms, if you're interested, and maybe some sources with videos and yeah, bibliography basically, which I used to create this presentation. All right, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you very much. If you attended the meeting, please put your name in the Telegram chat. I'll see you when? On Saturday. Yes, let me take a screenshot of people who are here. Second. All right. So, all right. Thank you, and see you on Saturday, I guess.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.